speaking of getting back to football, I do want to ask you a little bit about your team this year, because it's such an interesting sort of transition. There were a lot of people that were uncertain as to whether or not the Atlanta Falcons were going to draft a quarterback this year with the number 4 position. Mac Jones was there. Justin Fields was certainly there. You could have traded back still and probably gotten either one of those. How close or how much consideration did you give to taking a quarterback? Because this was the highest that the Atlanta Falcons had drafted in 13 years. And you hope you're never back in that position, right? So sometimes organizations will say, even though we still like Matt and we still want him to be our quarterback, we have to, at this position, draft a quarterback for the future, because there's not many success stories that come out of the late into first round superstar quarterbacks.
Yeah, so obviously everything, when Terry and I got to Atlanta, everything was on the table. And so we did our due diligence on all the quarterbacks or anybody we thought that would be available at number 4. And it is a big decision, but it was a very unusual year. There's a couple of things, there was a lot of quarterbacks, and and who knows, how the future plays out for all those guys. But just because you're picking the top 5 doesn't guarantee you'll get the right quarterback. And so, if you're number 4, do you get the first quarterback in the draft? Well, that certainly wasn't the case this year, right? I mean, you go back to 2008, and they were number 3, and they selected Matt Ryan after Jake Long and Chris Long. He was the first quarterback taken. And, the first quarterback taken in the draft, give or take, it's about 50-50 whether that pans out for multiple reasons. And then as you go on down the line there. So, just kind of bucking conventional wisdom, you're right. I mean, you've got to look hard at it, and we did. And but we feel very good about Kyle Pitts and what that does for the future. There's a lot of different models to look at. You can look at what Andy Reid did when he got to Kansas City, took over a 2-14 team in 2012 and 2013, and they got Alex Smith, and they had a great run. And then that team was well suited when they traded up to make the transition to Pat Mahomes. He certainly walked in there, and that's a big part of it too. You got to make sure it's the right environment when you do make that change to quarterback with a young quarterback. Certainly, you could make a strong argument that Matt was certainly helped by having a veteran center in there and Todd McClure. He had Roddy White. They got Tony Gonzalez the second year. That certainly helps a young quarterback with some stability. And I know there's a lot of different. I mean, you look at the Peyton Manning route. He certainly played early, took his lumps, and then took off. So everything was on the table, Chris. And there's no knock to any quarterback we didn't take or would have taken if they had fallen. And that's not a knock to them. It's just we feel good about our strategy, and we feel very confident in Matt Ryan right now.
And now without Julio, who I'm sure they were sort of like the ultimate going away present you threw back to Tennessee, but something that is going to fit that team nicely, and nobody knows that better than you do. But you also sort of have a replacement part right now, right? You've got that big body receiver to go along with some of the smaller, quicker moves of a Calvin Ridley. But how does a Kyle Pitts fit in right away? Because you were known for playing a lot of tight ends in Tennessee. Jonnu Smith ends up going to New England, but there were 3 different tight ends that were always a part of the mix down there. But Kyle Pitts is a different animal, right? I mean, he is one of those unique kind of characters in football that a lot of people now, myself included, can't wait to see what all you have planned for him.
Yeah, Kyle is certainly a unique player. There's not a Florida tight end bias, I would say. I mean, you could try to make that argument, but he is, and they played him all over the place. I was really impressed watching the film what Dan Mullen did and how they used him at Florida, because usually you're pretty skeptical when you see a tight end graded that high, and you're watching the film and you're doing your due diligence, and you realize he's a very unique player. And he can do more than what a traditional tight end can do. But like I said, what we put on Kyle's plate so far, we've got high expectations for him, and he's got the right mindset, and we'll let it play out organically. We'll bring him along the right way because, and he knows that. So we're definitely excited about using Kyle in the right way.
Yeah, the thing that impressed me, I always thought with him going down the field, it was almost anything was possible, seams, goes, whatever the case may be, the catch radius, he would always be able to flip around and make the catch, and huge arms and all the different things. Sometimes it's harder for those big, tall, rangy guys to be stop and go route runners as well.
Sure.
So I would say of what I saw from him on film, I would have thought a little bit more of anything vertical down the field, slants, whatever you want to talk about. He's got that. Let's turn him into a route runner on some of the stop and come back to the quarterback kind of guys.
Yeah, certainly we'll try to push the limits with Kyle, and like I said, he's a very mature guy. He's only 20 years old. Played 3 years. It's a great credit to his family and everybody that he's been around, to him. And I certainly wasn't as mature as Kyle was at 20 years old. But we're excited, and like we're talking about, I mean, his route tree was definitely impressive at Florida, and what we've seen so far, I think that we'll continue to try to push the limits for him.